so what I have here, I have my skirt block, I have a pencil, I have my rubber, I have 2 markers, I have my scissors, I have the paper, I have my pattern weights, fabric weights, I have my pattern master, and I have my tape measure. Some of these things I might not use, but I have them just in case. So what I'm going to show you today is how you can adapt your skirt block. Make my skirt with a little bit flare, and I'm also going to show you how you can bring it in a bit more to make it into a pin skirt. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is trace around your full block. Alright, so let's go ahead and trace this pattern around. And always transfer all your markings onto the bit that you trace. So this I'm gonna mark hip because that's my hip line. Alright, and also I'm gonna put in my darts. And this is my front skirt. Also I'm gonna mark fold right here. Alright, so let's go ahead and trace around the back. So this is my skirt block fully traced out. So now we're going to work on giving this a little flare and also bringing it into a pin skirt. Okay, so first what we're going to do is work on the sides. This is where we're going to make the adjustments. Alright, so from the hem area right here, so I'm going to be working with the my front skirt. Bring this in a bit more so you can see what I'm talking about. Right, so we're going to work from the end of the hem. Okay, and once you know where you're going to start work from, you're going to take your pattern master, your tape measure, your ruler, whatever one you're going to use, and from the hem here you're going to measure out either 2 centimeters. It depends on how flare you want your skirt. So because this is a small scale, I'm gonna measure out 2 centimeters. So you can either do 2 centimeters, 2.5. As I said, it all depends on your preference. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just gonna join that dot to that. So now I'm going to take my pattern master and I'm going to work from the hip area. So once you do that from the hip here, exactly where your hip line is, that is why it's important to transfer all your marks onto your traced pattern. So we're going to work from the mark here where the hip line is, straight down to where you mark your 2 centimeters. So on the back, on the side as well, I'm going to measure out from the end of the hem 2 centimeters again, and then same thing as you did in the front, right from the hip of the back you're gonna mark down the 2 centimeter point. Alright, so right by this point here, you can see how it's very pointed. So what I normally do is grab your pattern master and you place it onto the line right here. Here, let me bring this closer so you can see. Right, so this pattern master is literally sitting on right where the hem line right here. So if you notice right here, there is a little bit, about 0.2 centimeters. I would take my pencil and just kind of give it that slight curve. So when you do that curve, you won't see that peak. You can always go like that and you mark it up, whether it's 0.2, 0.5, right? or you can take your ruler and you place it onto right at the hem. Make sure it's right on the hem, and then you kind of shape it off like this, so it comes up really nice and like with a slight curve in line with the hem here. To make the skirt like a pin skirt, a bit narrower, you just do the opposite. So from this red line, the original line, you would measure in 2 centimeters or whatever, however narrow you want it, right? So you measure in that 2 centimeters, right? Straight from the hip line. This is why a pattern master, one of those rulers that have a curve, is very important, because then you get the perfect curve. So with the 2 centimeters that you measured across here, from the hip, mark it off right here. So you can see how your skirt comes in as a little bit here, and if you want it flare, you have it flare out that way. All right, so let's do the front. You measure in 2 centimeters. Right, and then you mark it up. Right, so that's it right here, and you continue, do your cuttings, do everything. What I'm going to do is trace around this paper again, and I'm going to show you how you can create a panel skirt. Trace around your skirt. Remember, any adaptation that you are going to do with any of your patterns, you always have to trace around it in order to create what you want to create. Alright, so this is going to be my hip line. That's the hip, and this is the front. It's better. Okay, so we're going to trace around this. Right, so we have the front and we have the back. What you can do is simply from the very end of your dart, let me bring this closer, because sometimes I don't know if you guys can see. Alright, so from the very end of your dart, you're going to draw a straight line straight to the hem line. So I'm going to do that now so you can see. Right, that's the line that we want. Right, and the same thing you do over here. What you'll end up with, instead of 2 darts, 2 on each side, you'll end up with 1 dart on each side. So now we're going to work on the back, and we're going to draw a line same as we did here in the front, from the dart straight to the hem, but we're going to use the dart that's closest to the center back. So you make sure from the bottom of the dart, that's where you mark. Alright, so you're going to draw that straight line down. Alright, so to make this into a panel skirt, I'm going to show you what you do next. So at this point now, you're going to cut out your pattern. And when you cut out your pattern, you cut all the way around, and always make sure to cut all the pieces the same as the original pattern. For example, your notches, and then the next thing you're going to do is cut up this red line, and then you cut out where you have the marking for your dart. So you're going to go up like this, alright, and these are your 2 panel pieces for your front. All right, you're going to cut the back as well, and then I'm going to show you how you lay them down. So what I'm going to do here, just so I don't get my pieces mix up with each other, I am going to mark each one so I know which is which. Okay, so these are things that you have to keep in mind to do. Right? If you don't have markings on your pattern, you'll get lost. So always remember to mark your patterns. All right, so now I'm going to show you what you do, or how you lay your pattern down, your new pieces down to create your panel skirt. We're going to grab another piece of paper here. Okay, so these are your front pieces. Remember, you have your center front fold here, right? So once you lay these down, remember you have to add seam allowance in this case as well. But you always place your pattern down where you have sufficient space around to allow you to get your seam allowance. So this is my side front, right? And then this is your center fold here. That's your center fold. So this is how you lay this down. Remember, you're going to add seam allowance for your panel skirt. And then this is your back piece, the same thing you do here. Right, so you have your pieces down on the paper. So now we're going to have 1 centimeter seam. All around is going to have 1 centimeter seam, with the exception of the front piece, which is going to be on the fold. So when you're marking your pattern, you have your 1 centimeter seam. Alright, so this is my front, my side front right here. So you're creating a new pattern. Trace around this. Anything you need to adapt with your pattern, always use the original as a template. And you do all your tracings, you create a new pattern, then you place it onto the paper. I'm going to go ahead and mark the rest of the pattern out. Alright, so let's just take off the pieces that we've placed on the paper here. Now we create a panel skirt. Okay, so these pieces here is our front, and then these pieces are the back. So it's always good, as I said, make sure and mark your patterns. Alright, so right here you created a panel skirt just by using your basic skirt block. Okay, so we can always write 1 1 and then 2 2. Alright, so when you finish with that, you cut that out, you place it onto your fabric, and you cut out your skirt. Right, you see here, right here, one bit is higher than the other, because right at the bottom it shows the difference. Like this is lower, so by the time you cut it, it's gonna be right in line. So sometimes you let a pattern and it may not be right in line with each other. As long as you have your markings where they need to be, you will not have a problem. Alright, so another thing you can do here is mark your green line. Let your cutter know how many pieces to cut on these patterns, right? So for the front, side front here, you're gonna cut 2. This is your center front piece, okay? So we're gonna mark fold here, so they will know that is the front fold, right? You cut that on the fold. So you mark, cut 1. The side back here, you cut 2. And for the center back, you also cut 2. 2. So there are a few markings that you need to jot down on your pattern. You have your dart here in the front. Remember, this panel, we eliminate one dart in the back, so you end up with one on each side for your back. In the front, you had a dart, one on each side, but because we make it into a panel skirt, there are no darts at all. This seam is in place of the dart, so you just totally cut out the dart out of the front piece. Alright, so now we're going to work on the flare and the pin skirt. Right, you cut out your skirt, you lay that down onto your paper, and you do the same thing here. Trace it around. So I'm going to trace right onto this line. Alright, so I'm just marking where my dart's going to be. And then you mark where your hip line is. Go across to mark your hip line. You can add your green line. This is the back, so you can mark cut 2. Let me mark back, right? And then you mark your green line. You can add your seam allowance. Alright, so this is what I'm going to do here. Alright, so this is going to be your pin skirt, and you do the same thing for the front. You put that down on the paper, and then you trace around the skirt. That's the side of your skirt here. Then I'm going to draw in the dart. And you mark that your hip, and you can add your seam allowance. This is the front, you mark fold, and you also mark your green line. You mark how many pieces to cut, which is 1, because that's on fold. Yeah, there are other markings that you can put, but for now that's it. And this is your pin skirt. If you want to do the flare skirt, alright, so the same thing you do here, and you trace that around. Alright, so once you finish tracing that, always make sure you trace everything. Sometimes you may lift your pattern and then realize, oh, I didn't trace that one. Then you're going to have a bit of a problem, because you're going to have to make sure and put the pattern down exactly where you trace it off from. And if it's not done properly, you have problems with your pattern. So always make sure that you trace everything. Alright, so this is our front pattern. Mark it front and also unfold. My red marker is so much better. I don't know what's going on with the other markers. Alright, so that's what you do. Then what you do here, you add your seam allowance. Whatever amount of seam allowance, you add that. Alright, so that's your front flare skirt. It's slightly flared. Okay, so this is your front and back flare skirt. Right, so you cut 2, and this you cut 1. So as you can see here, we did 3 different types of adaptation with our basic skirt block. This one is our flare skirt, and then this one is our pin skirt, and then this one is our panel skirt. So I hope you enjoy this video. These adaptations are quite simple for beginners, and as you go on gradually, you'll be able to understand the whole concept of adapting your basic skirt block. So I hope you enjoy this video. Please don't forget to like the video, share the video, and enjoy the rest of the day. I'll see you next time.